In my preliminary task, I had no knowledge of how to use Photoshop or InDesign, as I had never used them before. On the front cover of my college magazine, you can see I have only used one font, Myriad Pro, and two colours, red and yellow, which doesn't follow the conventions of a professional magazine, as a real magazine usually includes 3 or 4 colours and 2 or more different fonts. On my music magazine, I have used 2 fonts, Arial and Abaddon, and 4 colours, blue, white, yellow and black. This follows conventions of a real magazine much more closely, as it makes the most important elements of the page stand out. On the preliminary task, there is also a lot of empty space on both sides of my model, and the main cover line doesn't fit properly into the banner I have created. This makes the magazine look much less professional. The other cover lines are very spaced out and have a very plain design which doesn't entice attention. I made these mistakes as I didn't take enough time to analyse and distinguish what makes a magazine look professional, and how much simple things that can be easily adjusted can impact the overall outcome of the magazine in terms of appearance. On my music magazine, there is very little space left unoccupied by other images and shapes which contain banners, competition or cover lines. The shapes I use draw attention to the text inside, which tempts people to buy the magazine, especially the white boxes around the cover lines make them stand out from the blue of the background and the red of my model's hair, but also contrast well with the blue and black text. The shape beneath this stands out because it is a very obscure shape which also contrasts well with the background and the text. I gained the ability to do this during the creation of my music magazine. I analysed real magazines much more closely than I had done in my preliminary task. On my preliminary task, there are a lot of elements slightly overlapping my main cover image, which also makes the magazine look much less realistic. The masthead overlaps the college logo at the top of my main cover image, and the shape on the left also overlaps my main cover image. On my music magazine, I have positioned all my text and shapes to fit around my main cover image without interrupting the image and the preferred reading I am trying to convey to an audience. Throughout this year, I feel my skills in Photoshop and InDesign have developed a lot, as before this project I had never used it before. I also feel that I have developed a strong understanding of the codes and conventions of a real magazine regarding layout, consistency, contrast, and the sizing of text, images and shapes, and other simple things that magazines use that can make a huge impact on the overall product. For example, the fact that mastheads are better to be more simplistic. At first I tried this masthead, but after looking at real magazines like Kerrang and Q, I found that almost all of them use very basic but effective mastheads using bold, sans serif font. I also noticed they had very simplistic effects, whereas the first one I created had quite a lot of strange effects. I then changed it to this, which I feel is more recognisable and looks much more professional than my previous one. However, I still feel that I could have planned my project much better. On many aspects, I missed out on my planning and had to create something off the top of my head and make it look professional, which was challenging. I also felt that original ideas were too far-fetched to be used, as I realised that I didn't know anyone who I could use as my model. My original idea being a glam metal magazine. If I had planned this project better, it would have been much better, as all I would have to do was create it rather than waste time on experimenting with different elements to see if they would work, meaning my time management was much worse than if I had planned it correctly. If I had to do this project again, I would be much more detailed and specific in the planning stages, so I could do all my thinking then rather than when I actually had to make it.